Welcome to the Stress-Free Dentist podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Eric Block. As always, I want to inspire, entertain, and educate you on the best tools and technologies out there. My goal is to help make your practice and career more profitable, efficient, and most importantly, more enjoyable. And check out all of my nonfiction and children's books on Amazon, and check out the stressfreedentist.com for any upcoming events. And if you're feeling you're a dental professional that's burnt out, or you just feel stuck or want to get to that next level, visit the International Academy of Dental Life Coaches or www.iadlc.com, and we'll get you matched up with a life coach that understands dentistry. I also wanted to thank our amazing sponsor, Equa Marketing. They have helped me and my practice over the years to improve with SEO and website performance. And to find out how you can make your practice dominate in your area, go to www.equa.com/MSMSFD to book your complimentary meeting. Again, that's www.ekwa.com/MSMSFD. All right, everyone, welcome back to another episode. And today we are joined by Dr. Dan Greenstein, and he is known as the Smile Therapist. Dan, thanks so much for joining us.
Dr. Block, thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Yeah, it was good to meet you again. We met at I believe the Dental Festival in New Orleans last year, and you came right up to me and you shared your story, and it was quite the story. You've had quite the journey in dentistry, and lots of ups and downs. Can you tell me how you first got interested in becoming a dentist?
So when I was a kid, I used to build a lot of things. I used to work with my hands all the time. We had a basement in the house that I grew up in. I was like the mad professor, always taking things apart, mechanical things, and putting things back together. Back in the day, there was something called shop class, industrial arts, which I don't think exists anymore in high school and junior high. So I loved taking wood shop and metal shop and ceramics, and I took it all, and mechanical drawing, and I took it all from 7th grade till I graduated. So I thought I was going to go into engineering, specifically mechanical engineering. And then that didn't work out too well because the math got a little too crazy for me. And I just was lost, actually, by the time differential equations came around in thermodynamics. And I just was completely dumbfounded. I said, what the heck am I going to do? Because I am not having fun in this curriculum. And just so happens that I met some guys who were in the dental school at the State University in Buffalo. And they said, oh, you like working with your hands all day? That's all we do. It's just arts and crafts. Why don't you check it out? And I said, I never really thought about being a dentist. So I checked it out. I said, yeah, I know I could be good at this. It looks like something I would like to do. Like I said, I just always used to build things and take things apart and make things. And then I switched my major to biology. And now 41 years later, I'm still fixing teeth. I'm still working with my hands all day long.
And now after dental school, did you go on into private practice? Did you associate for a while? What happened there?
That's an interesting story. So I'm from New York State originally. So I take the boards, and for some reason, I failed the perio part of the NURBS. But at the same time, I had taken the Florida boards with some other guys from my class. So we fly to Gainesville. This is 1983. We didn't know anybody. And at the time, to take the Florida boards, you had to have 4 live patients, unlike it is now, where I think they do it all on mannequins. So these 4 guys from Long Island, we show up in Gainesville, which is really the South back then, with thick New York accents. And we're trying to find people to be our basically guinea pigs. So that's a whole nother funny story. So I passed the Florida boards, but I failed the NURBS. I failed perio. I guess I can't count till 5 or 6. I hate charting. So it's just so boring. So next thing you know, I'm in Fort Lauderdale. It's 1983. Fort Lauderdale was wild, and it was really a lot of fun. I lived right on the Strip, right near the ocean. And here I am, 25 years old, working for this big company that was actually from Boston. It was called Dentrix, Omni Dentrix. Mm-hmm. And it was the first publicly traded company. And they flew me to Boston. I met the boss, David Piner. I still remember this. He had a cell phone in his car. This is 1983. And I was like, wow, this is really cool. So he took me to this office and he said, well, we're starting one in Fort Lauderdale and we'd really like to get you down there. And I said, great, where do I sign? So I worked for them for a while, and then eventually I ended up, having my own practice, also in Broward County, on the west part of Broward County, not too far from where you went to dental school, actually, in Coral Springs.
Yeah, I know Coral Springs well. I went to Nova, as you know, and I took the Florida boards as well. And this is back in 2002, and I had to drive up to Gainesville. And yeah, I had to get a live patient for a class two amalgam and a scale and root planning, and the rest was on mannequin. Um, and it was, we could have a 3 hour episode on just the Florida boards and how crazy it was. We could have a shockumentary on it. Um, but
Well, well,
yeah,
I took it before gloves, before masks. I mean, it was a free for all, I can tell you. And like you said, a shockumentary. I have this crazy idea for a movie about the time that I spent there, those 10 days, how
yeah,
wacky it was.
yeah. I think I could definitely contribute to that. And you passed the Florida boards, which I thought was a lot harder than the NERB. That the NERB to me was a piece of cake compared to the Florida boards.
Yeah, that's what everyone kept saying. And I went to dental school at Stony Brook. There was only 23 of us at the time in the whole program. We were the sixth or seventh class. The class before us had 100% pass rate, and our class had like 50% pass rate. So the dean was like, what is going on here? What, they had it out for us? So all the guys who took Florida, the three other guys that I took, we all failed the nerves, but we all passed Florida. So we went to the dean and we said, we all passed Florida. He's like, what? Are you kidding me? And they failed you here? So they were definitely out for Stony Brook. That's what everyone said, because everyone passed the year before. But there was only 23 people. So, I'm not sure that's a good slice to analyze.
And now tell me what happened. You're practicing in Broward County. You're at your own practice. Tell me what happened. Did you have a great 30 years of practice and everything was peaches and cream?
So I'm practicing from like 1986, 1985 in my own thing. I shared space with another guy. We had a great arrangement. We shared the physical facility, and it was really working out well. And then other things started happening in my life, and if you can believe it, I started doing stand-up. And I started doing stand-up, and that led to some pretty important milestones in my development as an entertainer. So that kind of threw me off from being a dentist for a while, because I was on America's Funniest People. I was on National Public Radio. Colgate had a contest in 1992 or 93 for America's Funniest Dentist. So here I am at the AACD meeting in Manhattan doing my show for a group of dentists that I put together, like 20 minutes of comedy. And I'm at a meeting at NYU, and this guy comes over to me with the Daily News, and he says, look at this. Colgate is looking for America's Funniest Dentist. You should apply for this. And I'm like, oh, man, this is wild. So I went to Atlanta. They had 4 different places for semifinals. I won in Atlanta, and they flew me and my wife to Manhattan, and it was great. And I didn't win, but this dentist from Dallas won, and I never heard from this guy again. It's like he fell off the planet. He got on Comedy Central. He won $5,000. So that led me to other things, and I started doing the Dr. Dan Show. And I was all over the country, and my practice was starting to falter because of that, because I was concentrating a lot on being a speaker. But everything was good. I had 2 kids. It's a beautiful day here in South Florida, but I just got off track for a little while. And then my patients started saying to me, because I had all these newspaper articles on the wall from the Miami Herald and the Sun Sentinel, local dentist wins on America's Funniest People, local dentist finalist in Colgate search for America's Funniest Dentist. And they were like, you would much rather do that, I'm sure. And I said, man, I got to take down all these posters because I can do both, So my practice was good. Everything was fine. Everything was going great. And then I had some personal things happen in my life. Some very close friends of mine passed away, and just a perfect storm happened. And my father got Alzheimer's, and just a lot of bad stuff started happening. And I was always getting this feeling of like weight on my shoulders. like every time I went to travel, I was always worried about the office. I was always worried about everything from my patients to the staff to money to just everything was always on my mind. And slowly but surely, you could feel that this was really building up in me. And I just couldn't, let go of certain things that are part of being a dentist, especially if you own a business. And then one day I woke up about 15 years ago at 5:30 in the morning, and I've got chest pain, I've got shortness of breath, I've got cold feet, sweaty palms. And I'm saying to my wife, I think I'm having a heart attack. And my wife's like, you're not having a heart attack, you're fine. Take a shower, get off your butt. You're not having a heart attack. I said, I don't feel so good. And I was spinning the night before at LA Fitness, and I'm telling you, it just didn't feel right. But it was like a wave. It came and it went, it came and it went. So like 3 hours later, I said, I'm going to the hospital. And I didn't call the ambulance because I'm saying the ambulance is going to cost $5,000. I'm not sure I have a heart attack. I have a $7,500 deductible. Let me just see if I really having a heart attack. So I drove to the emergency room, and they kept me overnight. And they said, yeah, you're probably something's going on, because they gave me nitro and I still had this pain in my chest. And they said, we're going to do a CAT scan, a catheterization, and you probably need a couple of stents, and you'll be out of here the next day and everything will be fine. And I'm like, catheterization? I don't want that. Once they say we're going through your groin, there's nothing good when the word groin comes into play. There's never such a good groin. So I was kind of freaked out. And anyway, so after they brought me down to the cath lab, you're on, I guess, Demerol and different medications to put you to sleep. And you just kind of like fuzzy, and I can see the monitor. And like, I know how to read a cardiac catheterization. So I see all the little veins going through the heart, and I'm figuring, well, everything's fine, everything's fine. So they wheel me back up in the room, and I said, how many stents? How'd it go? And the guy's like, it didn't go, man. You need a quadruple bypass. And I'm like, no freaking way. And he's saying, yeah, wait, you need a quadruple bypass. You had a mild heart attack, and you're not leaving. So I couldn't, it was pretty wild. Here I am, I'm 52, everything's going great. And then the shit hit the fan when that happened. So, and then other things started happening. But that was my big wake up call, having that happen to me, sitting in the hospital for 10 days.
Wow. And after you left the hospital, what happened from there?
I didn't have like business insurance, continuation insurance. So I was out for like 3 months, and my practice really took a big hit. And, financially, it was a big problem. I just didn't have the strength and the energy to just like start again. It was just like this big wall was in front of me. And financially, it was a big strain, and it just became a lot between the other things that happened to me and my father going downhill, having dementia, and I kind of had to take care of him. And it was just, like I said, a perfect storm. So, and then I fell into a pretty serious depression, which can happen after a bypass operation, which I didn't know. And I had never, experienced depression before. So, my wife and my sister and my brother-in-law is a doctor, and they were like super worried about me because I just couldn't get back on track. And luckily I had this big support network to send me to the right people, the right doctors. And, so I went on this journey to just feel better up here, not so much with my heart. My heart was doing fine. My head wasn't doing so well. Just a lot of pressure and just a lot of stress, and just not feeling like I could do it anymore. Just like when I saw that scar on my chest, I was like, oh my God, I've got to change. Something's got to change. So that led me on this other path, where I'm at right now.
And tell me about this other path.
So right now you're talking to me, I'm at home and I don't work as much as I worked before. Uh, I, I kind of calmed down. I'm also at my piano right now. So I've got back into my music um, and just being definitely more relaxed and not being so concerned about every little thing. And after a while, I sold my share of the practice to somebody else that was in Coral Springs. And then I started working for other dentists for a while, still trying to do my act, the Dr. Dan show. And then luckily I found this thing working for a medical company who was looking to have dentists work in their medical centers in Central Florida. And they wanted me to be the new director to hire other dentists to start clinics within their medical centers. And that really, luckily for me, that really changed things around. And I gained my confidence back. And, I just got I built a whole practice for them. And I just got a lot of positive feedback from the patients. And I had another episode of depression before that, which was really pretty rough. So it had been rough, but the last, I'd say 8 years, things have really turned around. So things are much better right now.
Now, how did you get out of these episodes of depression? Was it through therapy, medication? Was it your music and your comedy? Just not being so hard on yourself? Was it all the above? What really helped you?
I have to say that I think the medication really pulled me out of the dark zone. It just all of a sudden one day, things changed. All of a sudden I was smiling again. I was like looking at stuff on the internet and telling my wife, look, this is great. This is so funny. And before I was just so glum and just this big cloud was hanging over me and I just couldn't find myself having any joy. And the medications in my situation really did help. I did go to therapy. I didn't really feel that for me really helped me. I don't know, I couldn't get into it. I do yoga now. I also discovered yoga and I really like that. I was at yoga on Saturday. So, you just focused on those exercises and the breathing. You don't have a lot of time to think about everything else. Once you get into it, you're really focused on just being there and just being present there and not thinking about what's going to happen an hour from now or what happened 3 hours before. And I live 5 miles from the beach, so I try to get to the beach more. And just things have just really turned around. But for me, the medication, I think, really was the trick.
And you still practice dentistry, but it's a locum situation. Is that right?
Yeah. So I work for different agencies, and I travel the whole state of Florida pretty much. It's fun. A lot of my friends, they are like, oh, "You still do that? How do you do that?" I go, my wife is cool with it. She's fine. 2 days a week, 3 days a week, I'm somewhere else. Sometimes I'm far away, so I stay in a hotel. Some of these companies pay for my travel, some don't. This week I'm going to be just north of Daytona in Ormond Beach for a couple of days. I'm going back to Naples, which is on the west coast of Florida, for a couple of days. I was in Cape Coral working for a Heartland group for like 3 weeks. I've been all over the state, and I discovered the state, that's for sure. And they've flown me to Pensacola, one company. They've flown me to the Panhandle, Destin. So it's kind of for me, it's good. I like it. I like it a lot.
And now, are you covering for dentists that have been injured or on maternity leave? What's the reason why they need you for those several weeks or even just those couple days?
Right. Some it's like they're going on a vacation. It could be maternity leave. It could be the person got sick. Like one time, the doctor hurt his hand, so they didn't, they needed someone to help out. And then one time, there's a practice in Central Florida where the owner just kind of vanished. It's one of these, DSO kind of things. And I'm telling you, the place, they vanished. And the team told me we've had the electric company come here 3 times. saying, "You guys owe us money. We're going to shut this place down. We're going to close. We're going to shut the electricity down if you don't cough up the dough, right?" And the staff is telling me all this. So the last time I was there, I show up, no one is there. I get called by the agency to drive 3 hours away, and I'm supposed to be working. And I'm knocking on the door, and there's nobody there. And I'm like, what the heck is going on here? So the lab guy, they have a lab as part of this practice, right? So the lab guy hears me knocking on the door, and he's like, "Dr. Dan, what are you doing here?" I go, "Jake, they told me I'm supposed to be here." He goes, "Oh, that's news to me. We're closed." And he goes, "Everyone quit. We don't know what's going on. The owner left. He vanished. There's a stack of mail. Look, I'll show you on his desk. There's a stack of mail 2 feet high." And the guy split. So I never really knew what happened there, but there's a whole story right there. So dentists, are not, some of them are not too stable. So you can hear anything happen.
That's how I want to go. I just want to vanish like Yoda, just disappear one day. Man, you must see it all. But now tell me about the Dr. Dan show. Do you go around to different states, and do you perform? How does that work?
Well, in the 90s, I was pretty big. I just hooked into this thing that I developed, and I was all over the country. I was in Bangor, Maine. I was in Anchorage, Alaska. I was in Nebraska, Wisconsin, San Diego, and it was, it turned into a fun side gig for me. So I make fun of dentists. I make fun of staff. I make fun of insurance companies. I make fun of patients. That's the thing. I really turn the tables on what they do to us. And everyone goes through the same crap. And I just make fun of what they do to us and what we're thinking about them while we're working on them and all this stuff. Like if you go to a comedy club and they do this whole, bit about going to the dentist, and you're like, "I don't want to hear this. I want to tell you all the things that you guys do that make us crazy." So that's what the Dr. Dan show, it's really like a three-spoked wheel. It's the staff, it's the patients, and the dentist. And it spins, and it's all about what happens in that world. And then I play the piano, and everyone's singing along to parody songs that I wrote. And it's really fun. I got on National Public Radio because I have 2 CDs. Not that anyone listens to CDs anymore. One's called Spit Happens, and one's called We'll Drill for Food. So I mailed those in the 90s everywhere. And NPR calls me up. "We heard your CD, Spit Happens. That's funny. We want to put you on NPR." I'm like, "What?" So anyhow, I was on National Public Radio, and I sold a whole bunch of CDs. And I haven't been doing my show that much lately because I'm just not out there. I don't really know how to do social media. I really need a good team to get me going again on, Instagram and Facebook and YouTube and TikTok. But I've done a couple of shows in the last year, and it's really fun. So it's an hour, and it's really for the team. If it's just going to be a bunch of dentists, forget it. It's not funny. If you tell me you have 100 team members and 25 dentists, it kills. But if you tell me I got 50 dentists for lunch, don't even call Seinfeld.
Only crickets. Yeah.
It's impossible.
Now, actually, I wanted to compare life as a comedian to life as a dentist. You're up there, you're on stage, and you've got to kind of master that room. Very similar to dentistry. When you're talking to a patient, you got to master that room. Did you learn a lot about being a great public speaker and educating patients on treatment from your stand-up days?
My educating and talking to patients has helped ever since I've been doing that. But at the beginning, I never thought about, doing public speaking. But I had started my practice in Coral Springs, and I wanted to get in front of the Chamber of Commerce, the school board, and get my name out there. So that's what got me into public speaking, because I was a member of the chamber, and once a month they had different people who were members get up and give a pitch for their business. And then I was part of a business club, and also we did that. So I got into public speaking. I went to Toastmasters, and that's how I morphed it into this comedy show. But when I first started my practice, I just, I did flyers, I did coupons, I did all that stuff. But I also wanted to get out there. I spoke to churches, I spoke to synagogues. And so that's, and specifically in terms of answering your question, does that help me talk to patients? I never thought of that, to tell you the truth. I guess it does. It doesn't hurt. But I think it's kind of different dynamic. When you're the dentist, the patient's there to get your advice. And when you're a comedian, the audience is expecting you, make me laugh, make me, It's not like being a singer where you're saying, and you got to really suck, otherwise people are giving you an applause, right? A comedian, you're either laughing or you're not, all right? So it's this visceral feeling. But I really think it's kind of different, because when you're in the room with the patient is already looking at you as the higher authority, versus it's kind of different when you're speaking. You have to prove yourself when you're up there. You have to prove yourself. So it's a little.
What about the fear of failure? You're up there, just beating yourself up because you didn't make the crowd laugh. Similar to dentistry, you didn't connect with that patient, or they left a bad review, or the margin was open by a millimeter. Both professions, it seems like you could really beat yourself up if you're not careful.
That's true. I mean, that's why, in the entertainment world, unfortunately, there's a lot of history of suicide and depression in the entertainment world, because you're riding on this high, and then all of a sudden you're not on that high anymore. You really feel, and you haven't gotten a show, you got canceled. I mean, not that I've been on TV, but I've had some bad shows. Yeah, I was in Colorado. I was in Colorado and I killed. I mean, I killed. Okay. And then from Colorado, the next day I'm in Oklahoma. All right. And I bombed terrible. And I'm going, and I'm going like this. I'm hitting the microphone. Hello, this worked in Colorado. What's going on here? Do I have to do this in Spanish? It's unbelievable. Nothing, death. Right. So after the show, this cowboy guy, dentist, big guy, comes up to me, he goes, "Boy, this ain't Colorado." I go, "You don't know Oklahoma, do you, boy?" I go, "I guess not." He goes, "This ain't Colorado." And I'll never forget that. And I go, "It's just next door." He goes, "It's a completely different animal." So I didn't even want to take the check from these people. I was like, "Oh my God, I got to get the hell out of here." So that has, yeah. And then you're thinking about it, you're going, "Shit, oh my God, I really bombed." But with patients, I worry differently. I really worry. I'm in the past, and I still worry if something doesn't go right on a case, and I'm like, thinking about it. Oh, is this going to be a problem? Is this patient going to blow up now? Is this going to turn into, even after so many years, I still have that fear, like you said. And one thing about doing locum, it's easier because the day you're over and you get paid, you go home, you really have to do something bad, which I haven't. So I like that.
That's interesting how you put it like that, that you work on these patients and then it's over, and the other dentist is coming back, they're off leave, they're back from injury or vacation. Now tell me about your time when you were really struggling with the stress of dentistry. Did you ultimately ended up, in the hospital, but do you think that was part of, ending up with a quadruple bypass? Do you think the stress from dentistry ended up contributing to that?
Yes, I do. I mean, I've always had elevated cholesterol. I was on Lipitor ever since I graduated dental school. So, that's obviously a physiological part of it. But I really feel that I just had this weight, this feeling all the time. And I didn't realize it until I was forced to take 3 months off. Okay, I had other stress, but when you take 3 months off and you realize that feeling that you had, it's gone. And if I used to just take a week off, and a week is nothing. Okay. And then I worked for this medical company, and part of my agreement was to get a month off a year paid. So it was unbelievable, right? So the first time I took 2 weeks off and knew that I was getting paid, it was like, oh my God, just this whole feeling that I used to have all the time of being anxious, of being nervous, that was all gone. Like 2 weeks really changes how you feel versus 1 week. But I really feel that the stress did contribute. I just want to tell your audience one other little thing that I learned, that if anyone has a disability policy through the ADA, most policies have a 90-day waiting period. Mm-hmm. But if you're in the hospital 5 days or more, and you can document that 90-day waiting period doesn't exist. And they pay you from day one. And I didn't know that. Okay. And after I got out of the hospital, I got a bill, from Great West. Hey, you owe us whatever. And I called them up and I said, I'm really having trouble right now. Can I delay paying this? And the lady was super nice. Tell me what happened. And I told her I was in the hospital for 10 days. She was like, 10 days? You don't have a waiting period, man. You can collect right away. I was like, what? And she said, yeah. I didn't know this. And all the disability lawyers that I went to, they had never heard of a policy like this. And she said, yeah, we added a rider like a year ago. Maybe you lost it or something. So I just wanted to throw that out there. If any of your listeners have, unless they changed it, has the ADA disability policy and you're in the hospital more than 5 days, there's no waiting period. You collect right away. But you got to be in the hospital for 5 days, so you got to really be sick.
Yeah. That's great. All right, Dr. Dan, let's wrap up with two final questions. Number one is, how do we get a hold of you and find out more about what you're up to? And then number two is just a last nugget or piece of advice for the young dentists out there.
Okay, so my email is drdan417@gmail.com, drdan417@gmail. My phone is 561-843-1617, 561-561-1617, since I'm in South Florida. My website is dentalcomedian.com. On Instagram, it's at Dr. Dan Entertainment. My advice for young dentists is, if you're going to have your own practice, you can't wear all the hats. When I had my practice, I wore all the hats, from HR to marketing to being the dentist to supplies to paying my bills. I mean, that's another thing that I didn't bring up. I couldn't let go. I used to pack my own cord. I did every step. I made my own temporaries. And I learned that much later, that a lot of people, there's something called delegation, that you delegate, you find good people and you delegate. And I don't know, I never learned that. And so if I had one thing to tell young dentists, is to find good people, trust them. And if you're going to have your own practice, learn to delegate, because you can't do everything. I mean, I used to write my own Yellow Page ads. I negotiated the lease with the landlord. I designed my flyers. It was just too much. And plus dealing with the team and the hiring and the firing. I did all of that. And in addition to being a father, a husband, dentist, so it was a lot. So that's my recommendation, is to delegate. That is absolutely such great advice. Dr. Dan Greenstein, thank you so much for joining us. Such a great episode. Thanks again for listening to the Stress Free Dentist podcast. And don't hesitate to get in touch with me at info@thestressfreedentist.com. And if you haven't already, please subscribe on your favorite platform and leave us a review. Until the next episode, I'm Dr. Eric Block, the Stress Free Dentist.